officials in City Hall, and as many of you know, I'm chaired a committee in Sacramento where I had a big gavel, got to beat it a lot, but I won't be doing that here. So let me first welcome you all to the first meeting, at least the first meeting as with this new composition of the Innovation Technology General Services Committee. I'm joined by my colleague Mitch O'Farrell, and we'll soon be joined by my other colleague, Mr. Mike Bonnet, both of whom I'm really excited about having them as the colleagues on this committee. They're both very technologically savvy, and they're really ready. We've talked already about the exciting things that we can do to really move the city forward and sort of leapfrog the 20th century, go straight from the 19th century to the 21st century in some respects. So we're excited about that. So I want to take a moment, introduce some of the members of the city family who support the ITGS committee. Eric Villanueva of the City Clerk's office is here. Mandana Khatib Shadian, oh no, sorry, I mispronounced it. Khatib Shahidi.
Yes.
Is that right? Okay. Mandana Khatib Shahidi will be working closely together. She's with the Chief Legislative Analyst's office. My own staff, Stephanie Magdalene Rockwell of my office, and Officer Steve Morris is here as Sergeant of Arms. These are the folks who are going to be here on a regular basis at all of these meetings as we move forward, and will be the team that propels us forward on all the issues that come forward. So, as I was mentioning, and I mentioned my other colleague who I've already said good things about you in anticipation. Yeah. That's another issue we'll do, the Skyping issues. But as I mentioned, very excited about Mr. Bonnet as well, who's really excited about some of the possibilities that we have in this committee. One of the things about technology, from my perspective, how we harness it, it's a tool that can allow us, to become more transparent, more effective, and more accessible. And that's sort of the goal, one goal I have as we move forward and try to harness the powers of technology to do those things, not just for technology's sake, but because of what it can do for our city. So before we get started, well, I should say, before I get started with the meeting, if either of my colleagues want to make any opening statement, just in general, this is the inaugural meeting, you're welcome to. Otherwise, we can move forward.
Just thanks, Mr. Chair. It's a pleasure to be here and to serve with the both of you. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just say, also equally excited to be here. I noted to a lot of people right after the elections that I thought we had an incredible opportunity in the city with this new class of electeds, with a mayor who has technology in his DNA, I think, and what I described as an innovation and technology caucus on the city council, not just us, but Felipe Fuentes and a number of the others who are really into this stuff, that we can make the city a lot smarter, a lot more efficient, and a lot more transparent by using technology, and I'm stoked to see you in the lead of this effort.
Well, thanks, and I think we're all excited to just dive right in. So let's do that. We'll start off with items 1 and 2. We're basically going to consider those concurrently. So maybe we'd start out, ask Mr. Villanueva to please read the items into the record.
Item 1 is a City Attorney report relative to the request to destroy obsolete records from the Department of Transportation, various division, DOT 14, 21, 31, 33, 66, 70, 75 for a total of 158 boxes for the period covering January 1988 to December 2010. And item number 2 is a City Attorney report relative to the request to destroy obsolete records from the Department of Transportation, Parking Operations Support and Adjudication Division, DOT 12 and 62 for a total of 50 boxes for the period covering January of 2001 to December of 2008.
Great. I don't believe we have any cards on this item. Do we have any cards on this item? No. And this, unless there's an objection from my colleagues, these two items are pretty routine, and I would just consider them on consent and move on to the next. So without objection, we will approve items 1 and 2 on consent and move to item 3. Mr. Villanueva, would you please read item 3 into the record?
Item 3 is Department of General Services report relative to the lease renewal for studio space for Channel 35 of the Information Technology Agency at 319 East 2nd Street, Los Angeles.
Great. Are there any cards on this item? No public comment cards. Okay, so with staff from GSD, you're at the table. Please introduce yourself and then report on the item.
Good afternoon. My name is Melody McCormick. I'm with GSD's Real Estate Services Division, and Dave Roberts is with me here as well. This particular item requests that we amend a council action from December of 2012, modify it to include 9 parking spaces. The the landlord in this particular case had greatly reduced the rent. We have $20,000 in savings on this particular lease renewal. However, he could not afford to really give us the parking for free, which was an error on staff's part when this went through council. So we're asking that we now modify this to include the 9 parking spaces. It will be at a total cost of $14,580. The leasing account already had a line item in it of $15,000, so the funds are available to cover this.
Okay. Mr. Roberts, do you want to add? No. Okay. Just so I understand it, we had the original lease was a savings of about $20,000.
Correct.
And this one will cost us $14,500, but that'll result still in a net savings of $5,500.
Actually, the $20,000 in savings is for the lease, so that will remain as savings. The $15,000, there was actually $15,600 as a line item, and so we will actually continue to retain that $20,000 in savings on the lease. But we will actually, on the line item for the parking, will actually obviously not be saving that $15,000.
So originally, prior to the mistake, it was being booked as a savings of the $20,000.
We thought we were going to have a larger savings, yes.
Plus the $15,500 in savings.
Correct.
Okay, so it's not that we're reducing the $20,000 of the overall savings. We're just reducing. We're losing that particular line.
Right. Exactly.
But still, overall, we have that savings.
Correct.
Okay, do my colleagues have any questions on that item?
Just how many employees work there?
I believe it's close to 9, which is why the parking spaces are requested, but I'm not certain.
So it's both employee and...
Floor there?
Mark Wolf, Executive Officer with ITA. We have 11 staff.
Okay.
And plus contractors.
Just curious, do you guys have a bike rack?
I don't know that, Councilman, but I can look into that and get back to you.
Yeah, it would be cool if you could actually get a bike rack.
Okay.
I'll be doing that with a lot of leases.
All right.
Okay, we'll note that.
Great. Any other questions? Without objection, that item will be approved. And we'll move on to the next item. Item 4.
Item number 4 is the Department of General Services.
Before we take a vote, we're going to take up 4, 5, and 6 together. They're really all
Correct.
birds of a feather. So if you could read the 3 into the record, and then we will just address them all as one.
Item number 4 is the Department of General Services report relative to the 4 new license agreements with the State of California for spaces within the Clara Shortreach Faults, Compton, Van Nuys, and Metropolitan Courthouses for use by the City Attorney's Office and or the Los Angeles Police Department. Item number 5 is another Department of General Services report relative to a lease agreement with Long Beach Judicial Partner LLC for space within the Long Beach Courthouse for use by City Attorneys and the Los Angeles Police Department. And item number 6 is another Department of General Services report relative to a license agreement with the State of California for custodial services and space at the East Los Angeles Courthouse for the City Attorney's Office.
Okay. Are there any cards on this item? No cards on this item. So on the second, how do the lease rates here compare with the prior ones?
On the first item, which is the lease renewals for, actually it's a license renewal for the Clara Shortreach Faults, the Compton, and the Van Nuys in the Metro, we are receiving, we're going to have it's the same annual increase that's been approved for all the other courthouse spaces, and all of them increased by 3% on August 1st of 2013.
So they're all, okay.
Yes. So it's consistent with the lease renewals that we've had at other courthouse space.
Okay. And then with regard to the Long Beach,
Correct.
have you explored any cost comparison of other, facilities?
Yes, we did. We actually had staff survey the area. We developed several alternative proposals. They range between $225 a square foot as opposed to $233. Several of them were more expensive at $267 a square foot. However, all of these were at least half a mile away, if not more, from this particular location. Given the types of activities that the city attorney and the police department need to engage in once they're in the courthouse, it's just a lot more efficient for them to have space within the courthouse itself.
So you made an assessment that the delta was small enough that it didn't justify...
Right, exactly. So the savings were not, the savings of, 8 cents were not significant enough in terms of the inefficiencies, plus also the parking issue. So we're recommending that we take this space within the Long Beach Courthouse. The developer has set aside the space for us. There was competition for it, so we wanted to move very quickly on it.
And the 8 cents per square foot, what does that translate into overall, the delta?
It would be 8 cents per square foot. I'd have to come back and calculate that.
Okay.
It's not a significant savings per year.
Great. Any questions from my colleagues? No? Okay. So with that, I think we will approve all 3 of those items. And we'll move to item 7. Mr. Villanueva, would you please read that?
Item number 7 is a motion by Council Members Rizar and Blumenfield relative to amending the lease agreement between the City and SCE Federal Credit Union at the Boyle Heights Neighborhood City Hall, located at 2130 East 1st Street, Los Angeles, California, to allow $50,000 rent credit over the 5-year term of the lease.
And the author of that motion has asked for it to be continued. So without objection from my colleagues, we will continue that motion until time. So let's move to item 8. And would you please read the item?
Item number 8 is a City Administrative Officer report in response to motion by Council Members Parks and Rizar relative to voiding the sale of surplus property located at 5975 Southwestern Avenue, Los Angeles, California, and the return of escrow funds.
Good afternoon. Lisa Johnson-Smith, the City Administrative Officer.
Before you go, should we ask for cards? I think is the next thing we do. Are there any public cards on this? Just to confirm that. Sorry to interrupt. Please go ahead.
The CAO office requests Mayor and Council approval to return a $2.2 million deposit to the CRA because the sale of city-owned property located at 59th and Western Avenue from the city to the former CRA was never completed. The funds are currently held within the General Services Department Trust Fund. There is no impact to the city's general fund. In addition, we request for the Office of the City Attorney to prepare and present an amending ordinance voiding the sale of the city-owned property. In September 2009, the Council adopted Ordinance number 180890, approving the sale of the property at fair market value, which was $3.6 million. In February 2010, GSD opened escrow, and the former agency deposited $2.2 million in CRA general revenue funds with the city. The balance, $1.4 million, was due April 30th, 2010. It was to be paid with the city's community development block grant funds. However, the CDBG funds were not advanced by the city to the former agency due to initially a 2010 audit by HUD and the Office of Inspector General, which prohibited the former agency from entering into contracts with the city's Economic and Workforce Development Department. Subsequently, due to the passage of the redevelopment dissolution legislation, all of the community redevelopment agencies were dissolved by operation of law effective February 1, 2012. The successor agency is tasked with administering the process through which the business of the former agency is wound down and concluded. In May 2013, the CRA requested the return of the $2.2 million deposit. The city's outside legal counsel for CRA dissolution matters, Richard Watson and Gershon, has reviewed the CRA's request and recommends that the city refund the $2.2 million deposit to CRA. Available for any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any additional comments from staff? Okay. Are there any questions from my colleagues on this item? I mean, the main thing about this item, by taking this action, we then free up that property, which I know the council member has designs and some interesting ideas to do with that property, and unless we resolve this, that property is effectively frozen. So taking this action is positive. Yes, we're giving money back to the state, but it's not money that would come to the general fund, and it's a property that now we can find a creative way to make it a productive property that can serve the community. So with that, I recommend passage, and without objection, that item is agreed to. Thank you. So next item is item 9. Mr. Villanueva, please.
Item number 9 is a motion by Council Members Blumenfield and Councilmember Price relative to the development of a citywide municipal Wi-Fi initiative. We have 2 speaker cards for this item.
Okay. Can't quite read it, but it's Mr. Don Garza, followed by Mr. George Wolfberg, and I apologize, Mr. Garza, if I've gotten your name wrong. Yes, please. Please come to the mic, and you'll have 2 minutes.
Wow, we're moving into the 21st century in Los Angeles. This is the best thing that could ever happen to this city. In about 2 weeks, I plan on launching my personal website, which is the official website for the town crier of the city of Los Angeles. And I hope to be promoting the city of Los Angeles with my website, along with an app that I'm going to create as well. So for all the other promoters and all the other town criers of LA, this is going to be awesome for them as well. Along with the other unintended great business opportunities that are going to be created, because we're going to have people coming from all over the world. Maybe they may not have no money. Maybe they do. Maybe, they'll have a mobile device of some sort, and they'll be able to access the internet, and they'll be able to tour, spend their money within the city of Los Angeles. I also understand that there are many people that do find themselves without a place to stay, without a home, between jobs, broke, and they still have their mobile device now. And with that mobile device, they can constantly be updated on jobs. Go to monster.com, whatever they have to do. And this will also eat away at one of our biggest issues. And little by little, just like an elephant, how you eat it one piece at a time. This will be another way of eating at that issue of homelessness, as well, as people will be able to, instead of making a decision, how do I, pay for my cell service to check on getting a job, as opposed to being on the street. So I'm grateful for you guys. I'm grateful for this, and I want this really, 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 really badly, because I want to be a multimillionaire soon and solve homeless problems as well. Thank you very much, Mr. Bloomfield.
Great. Thank you very much for your testimony. And
Nice shirt, by the way.
Good shirt, good comments, although I don't know if we can advocate eating elephants, but that's another story. So our next speaker is Mr. Wolfberg.
Of the 11th District.
All right.
Of the 11th, yeah. Mr. Chairman, committee, thank you. Thank you for introducing this motion. I think it's terrific. I can't wait. I would say start with this building here. I just look, there is Wi-Fi, but you can't get to it. So that would be a good start. I know when I go to the library, Wi-Fi, no problem. Go to a park, well, we can't do it. We're not allowed to do it. So that doesn't sound right. So I think a priority might be to start with parks. And I'd like to save all my... The other thing is, some people have mentioned to me that there's a security issue, and I don't know if you can fix that. But I'd like to save all my time for the next item.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay. We can have staff from ITA please come to the table. And if you want to make some opening comments.
Well, first, I want to thank all of you for being here, because this is exciting for me. Seeing that technology now is a focus for the city, I feel like I'm here at the perfect time, and I'm excited about this motion. Look forward to working with you to see what we can do to implement.
Great. Well, I'm excited about this motion in terms of city Wi-Fi. I think it can do a lot of different purposes. Why we're bringing it forward as the first step to start instructing the department to look more into it and start putting together a real plan of how we can make this happen. I think we've heard a little bit from public testimony, we know that it's, conceptually, it can do a lot for this city in terms of bridging the digital divide, bringing government closer, creating access, jobs, helping prevent traffic in some ways by allowing people to have easier access to information. I look at Wi-Fi as infrastructure. I've been a big proponent of infrastructure when you're talking about roads, bridges, highways. This is every bit as much as infrastructure as all of those other things. It's just virtual infrastructure. And there is an important nexus for pooling our city resources to make that happen. And part of what I'd like us to investigate is how we go about it. I know that to learn from the past, we tried something, looked into this about 10 years ago, as I understand it, in '92. And at that point, they looked at it and thought it was prohibitively expensive. A lot has changed in those years, both in terms of the technology making it cheaper, but we've also seen other cities take it on and successfully take it on. And one of the ways I'd like us to look into it is looking at all the different city agencies, entities out there that could benefit by Wi-Fi, and trying to quantify the benefits that each entity could accrue from such an overall service. And if we can add up those benefits, perhaps that will pay for all or a portion of the actual infrastructure costs from the savings of all the departments. Because a lot of departments are doing their own thing in bits and pieces, and it may or may not pay off for them. But having a Wi-Fi mesh for different, for public safety, having a Wi-Fi mesh for DWP, for all of these are overlays that are useful to the particular agencies. But if we were to just piggyback them all together, we could have something that's much bigger. So I want to have a discussion about this with the members, but I also want to say my intention for this motion is to hold this motion in committee, ask ITA afterwards, and we can discuss changing this as we talk about it, but to do a couple of things. Provide a report that includes an inventory of the existing Wi-Fi within the city, talks about methods other cities have used to implement municipal Wi-Fi, puts together recommendations for developing and implementing a municipal Wi-Fi strategy, and quantifies the savings and works with the other agencies in the city to quantify the need and the savings for this kind of thing, so that we go to DWP. We say, how much, if you had all of your parking meter readers, they were Wi-Fi enabled, how much would that save you? How much would it cost you to do something like that on your own? How could you plug into the system? Whether we're talking about smart meters, gas meters, parking meters, or anything. I mean, we have a lot of it. How can we utilize the infrastructure that we have, whether they're the light posts that line our streets or the billboards that people are paying for, to plug into this overall system. So that's the outline of what I'd like us to report on, but I want to open it up to my colleagues, too, to talk about the issue and to talk about if there are other things that you think we should ask ITA and other agencies to bring in for that report. So, Mr. Bond.
Thanks. Thank you for introducing this motion. Sometimes they tell us we can't second a motion of someone else, someone who's on the same committee as us, and I would have done a huge John Hancock on this one had I had the opportunity. You're right that this is an infrastructure issue. I think free Wi-Fi is actually the cyber version of our sidewalk crisis. It is ridiculous that the city of Los Angeles does not have Wi-Fi. Smaller cities have done it, and I'd like to understand, how they did it and see how we can build out on it. We are one of the most cutting-edge and wired cities in the world, and I represent one of the districts that is probably most cutting-edge and most wired, including Venice and Silicon Beach, and Google and YouTube and Snapchat and all these apps are being born in my district. And it's really sort of heartbreaking that people who live in that 21st century world have to go back in time when they come to City Hall or elsewhere in the city. And I echo what Mr. Wolfberg said about needing it here in this building in particular, in our parks and in our public places as at least a first step. I also want to echo what Mr. Garza said. This is, although it doesn't sound like it, but this is a social justice issue as well. Google has been working very closely with some of the social service agencies in my district to give everybody a digital address and to help them get online so that they can stay better connected when they're seeking jobs, when they're seeking housing. And it's become absolutely essential in the world we live in to do that. And having free Wi-Fi is a big part of that because it's very hard sometimes. So I love this idea. I want to do anything I can to help move it along. I would ask that we also look at what experiences we have gained from the Wi-Fi at LAWA, which is actually not at LAX, which is not the ideal system because you get 45 minutes free and then you have to pay. Also, I understand that we have free Wi-Fi on the flyaway system. Is this something, the flyaway shuttle system from, say, Union Station or Van Nuys to LAX, is this something that we can add to our Dash shuttle system? I'd also like to see if there's ways that we can move this through public-private partnerships. We have all these companies in our district. Are they willing to partner with us? Or in our city, are they willing to partner with us in any way? There might be some opportunities there. And in terms of City Hall, we really need to get it going at City Hall. I think it's embarrassing. Is there a way, as we look at renewing our email and cloud system, to see if there's a way to include Wi-Fi in city facilities as part of that?
Mr. Rivera.
Those are great points, Mike, and I also love this motion, so thank you, Mr. Chair, for introducing it. I think that maybe Houston is a good model. Is Houston, for clarification, is that the largest city in the U.S. so far that has done free Wi-Fi?
It depends. When you use the term free is key.
Okay.
So I would say probably the largest out there that's doing free is Riverside, California.
All right, so slightly different scale there than Houston to L.A. because that's very similar in terms of population, density, etc. So Houston's model, it's not free Wi-Fi. Is it limited?
My understanding that there's hotspots that are available for free, but there's also a paid component.
Okay. We can learn a lot from the economy of scale in comparison to LA, I think, from Houston. But if Riverside's the model, then that's the one we might learn from the most. I also want to acknowledge, I think Mar Vista, if I'm not mistaken, did the neighborhood council there?
Yes.
They have free Wi-Fi that has been up and running for a couple of years, 3 years maybe. And I know that in my own district, the Hollywood Studio District Neighborhood Council approved funds and actually purchased equipment some years ago.
Yes.
And they're holding off until there's this citywide system. I would love to do what I can to, if you're looking for places to roll out trial locations for it, perhaps that would be a good start, or to partner, in other words, partner with groups or entities or nonprofits, what have you, that have self-determined and been active on this issue already. We might be able to learn a lot from these types of groups. And then, as you said, Mr. Blumenfield, it's not the costs associated with this. It's not an uncomplicated issue. However, I think that we should absolutely take the lead on this and really exert that. And I think people have been waiting for it. And City Hall, public parks, or public transit system, all great places to start. So I would support that as well. I'm just I'll eagerly await your report next month in terms of the different examples that are out there that might closely relate to what we can do here in Los Angeles. So, thank you.
Sure. If we could amend the minutes to indicate that I mentioned Mar Vista instead of Mitch, that would be very helpful.
Sorry.
So part of it is doing the inventory, and based on what you're saying, making sure that part of this motion includes getting an inventory of what we actually have. Want to make sure we amend our direction to include things that Mr. Bonnet said with the public-private partnerships and the public transit system. And I also want to make sure that we drill down, on the costs and the cost savings, because that's going to be, I think there's sort of widespread agreement that this is, this would be a great amenity. And what I intuitively believe, it's also going to be a tremendous cost savings to the city when you add it all up, both in terms of potentially in terms of real dollars and in terms of the cost that people are paying, but then obviously once you start adding the intangibles of job promotion and of making the city more fluid, those are harder to quantify, but are really going to make the equation sort of fall off the scale in terms of weighing it so much to that effect. So do you have any other comments you want to make about our existing, some of the things that you know about our existing Wi-Fi network, where it is, where it isn't, or what we should be looking forward before obviously you're going to do the report. That'll be much more extensive. But
Well, certainly since 2007, there's been a series of hotspots that have been implemented over there, and a lot of this has been taken on by the nonprofit community as well as by the private sector. I mean, if you go to Yelp, you'll see that just in the city of Los Angeles, there's over, this is as of this morning, a little over 3,431 locations in Los Angeles that offer free Wi-Fi hotspots at establishments. But if you take a look at what the city has done, we got an economic stimulus grant where we built out 188 training centers, and at those locations today, which includes our libraries and community centers, 72 of them are offering free Wi-Fi today. And as you're aware, the airports is doing that, and we have some other locations, pretty small, that offer it, like at Van Nuys Civic Center, Pershing Square. So not real extensive as of yet, so certainly something we can build on. In meeting with a few of the nonprofits out there, a lot of folks have already partnered with private sector to get them to donate a broadband connection, and they've been able to extend the mesh out in some of the poorer communities of Los Angeles, so I'm very encouraged to see that. And then also you have a lot of the neighborhood groups that are doing the same thing, that are leveraging some of the private sector companies to extend a broadband connection and create mesh through their neighborhood communities in need. So a lot of that's been going on, but you're right, a more broader strategy is needed for the city of Los Angeles, and certainly LAUSD, who is now rolling out a one-to-one mobile strategy, is really looking to the city for leadership. They're really looking to see, the 30% of their students that are going to school that potentially in the future they're going to take that mobile device home, and if they can't get a broadband connection, are going to have issues getting their homework done. So I think they're really looking for the leadership of the city, and your council motion will go a long way to help service that need.
And the other thing I was thinking about, these readers that are using RF signals, like some of the various meters at the city agencies, or how much is that costing, and how much of that cost could be alleviated by having a Wi-Fi system instead?
Well, again, there was an inventory that was done that's very old, 2007. I think I need to dust that off, really take a look at what's changed since 2007, build this new inventory and find out what those costs are, and more importantly, see if Wi-Fi could offer some savings in those areas.
Great. Well, as you can see, we're all very excited about that, and look forward to next month getting that update and taking the steps necessary to move us in the right direction. So very good. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
And we'll move to the next item, item 10.
Item 10 is an Information Technology Agency report relative to the status and usage of the MyLA 311 smartphone mobile application since its launch, and the types of services requested, with a breakdown of service requests by geographic areas and or council districts, and the type of public outreach conducted. We have one speaker card for this item.
Great. If I could have the speaker card. Mr. Wolfberg.
Thank you again. I think your app is really great, but it could be much better. And I have some things to chew on that I've given it on this little document here called Improving Constituent Access to City Services, the My 311 app. And I'll try to just go through here quickly. There's a Remember You feature at the end, so that if you do something and 2 days later you don't have to put in all your stuff again. Sometimes you might want to be anonymous, so there should be a little checkbox so you could be anonymous for that particular one. I think there are more options. You should allow multiple photos. If sometimes something takes more than one photo to show, There should be a direct forwarding of the other request. If you send another request now, you get a thing back and say, sorry, dummy, you should have called this number instead. That's not friendly. I think there needs to be a way to forward it to the appropriate place if they can't handle it. There should be a page with addressable phone numbers so that if there are urgent issues you see, for example, a down power line, a traffic light's out, an accident, possible toxic spill, landslide, brush fire, something where you may not want to call 911, if you can just be able to just link correctly and call because you got a phone anyway, you could call directly to whoever needs to get that information. The ACE ordinance went into effect a couple weeks ago. There should be reporting with photos of the various ACE items. I would add links for reporting fire hazards, zoning violations, construction violations, DOT issues such as stop sign fill over or something, pavement marking problems, so you can just take a picture and send it and it goes to DOT. Abandoned and illegally parked vehicles. A leaking water main. I'm watching one up the street from my house. I can't tell whether it's a bad sprinkler or whether it's leaking or not. I want to be able to take a picture and send it to Water and Power. I can't do that now. Trash cans that are left out 24/7. Like to send those in. Improve the app using volunteers to reassemble city data, as is being done in Chicago, San Francisco, Louisville, and South Bend. There's an article in yesterday's Wall Street Journal that talks about this. It's really exciting. Enhance the Google map to include traffic. There's a Google map in there. That's part of the Google experience. You press that and you can see, well, maybe I'm not going to come down to City Hall today. So look at pushing updates. When you improve the product, just push them automatically like all the apps do now. You click a box and it automatically updates while you're sleeping. Finally, on telephone access. Right now, if I'm driving in my car and I see a police non-emergency event, I've got the police non-emergency number in here. You call it, and you pull over and call it, and then, okay, it's ringing, so you start to drive. It answers and it says, press 1 for English. Oh, I'm driving. I can't press 1 for English. You need to be able to say press or say 1. So I can say 1, and then it'll get me to the next screen. So I think that's a simple change. It's not something that hasn't been done. It's got to be available.
Great. These are all great suggestions. Thank you very much for bringing these forward, and certainly we want to make sure that the folks from ITA get a copy of your document as well. So would staff from ITA please come to the table to give their report on this, and to make sure that you have a copy of Mr. Wolfberg's one sheet as well.
We'll do. Steve Renneker, General Manager of the ITA. As you know, 311 is critical to the ITA. We manage the infrastructure. Back in January, we had approval due to an Oracle settlement to actually purchase a new CRM, Oracle Siebel. We're excited about getting that project going. We did the kickoff this month. It'll be about a 9 to 12 month effort, and that'll provide a lot of the automated back-end features and also have to each of the city council members the ability to have a dashboard to find out not only what's going on in your neighborhoods, but you also find out what's been resolved by city departments so you can make some business decisions. I'd like to go ahead and do introductions. We did hire a new 311 director to oversee the 311 area. Very excited. She comes from a community that does an excellent job handling 311 complaints. And so Donna, stand up. Very excited to have her on board our team, and she also has implemented Oracle Siebel where she came from, so she'll be a key resource to us as we go forward and make sure we leverage that application to the best extent for LA. Back in February, we rolled out, prior to this project, a mobile app, My LA 311, that Mark Wolf, Assistant General Manager and Executive Officer, is going to give you an update on. But we also, following a few months later in May, we introduced a web version. So you do have the ability now, even though we don't have the fully blown automated solution up and running, the ability for those emails that come in from those two applications to be served by Donna and her team to make sure that we turn those around in a timely fashion. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mark. He'll give you an update on where we're at. Very excited about, in the short time window where this application went live, where we're at.
Thanks, Steve. Mark Wolf, Executive Officer with ITA. I'd also like to introduce the team members from ITA that are here today that are going to be involved in the 311 CRM rollout. Jennifer Banos is going to be the project manager for the team, and Ed Magos is our technical specialist that is also part of the team. Well, first let me start by saying we're very excited with the uptake, the usage of the MyLA 311 app since its rollout. We rolled out the application in mid-March, did a soft launch. So if you look to your right, you'll see the graph that shows the metrics. We have been following the initial rollout, the soft launch in March, starting that following April through June, we've been averaging about 2,000 requests being submitted per month. And what's really great is, I think with leadership of the new elected officials and the new mayor, there's been really a spike in the usage in the month of July, and I'm anxious to see the statistics for the month of August. We've got, in July, over 3,000 requests that were submitted. If I look at, in regards to the types of users that have downloaded the app, we have over 14,000 people who today have downloaded the app. Many of those users we're finding at this point have been Apple users using either iPads or iPhones, so about 70% of the users. 30% is on the Android platform. In regards to the types of requests that we're finding to be the most popular for submitting using the mobile app, well, actually, before I get there, I'll talk about the usage throughout the various council districts through this time frame from mid-March to mid-July. The most use has actually been in the top 3 districts, has been in Council District, let me get to my notes, give me a second here, I'm sorry. Council District 1 is the most requests submitted, Council District 13, and then Council District 4. So I think there's been some great usage and download of the apps throughout the city. I think there's a lot more that the city can do in terms of promotion. In regards to outreach, we were fortunate with a couple of different press events that were involved in initially launching the application. We got some good media coverage. We've also been fortunate in that through your elected offices, we've had, through your own social networks, you've been able to reach out to your constituents and help promote the application. So many of the council offices have done that, as well as the mayor's office, but there's more that we can do in that area. Department of Neighborhood Empowerment has been really good and also multiple times promoting it in their electronic newsletters, and I think everyone can do that in their newsletters, not only elected offices, departments as well, to help promote this. Some future ideas that we have for outreach include advertisement on Channel 35 for both the cable channel as well as webcast. Also working with the Chambers of Commerce to help promote, also to get the word out. We're also looking at ways to enhance our 311 operations for our on-hold greeting, where we can also advertise the mobile app as another alternative for getting requests into the city. As I mentioned, newsletters, we'd love to have more promotion through the electronic newsletters, through neighborhood councils, through dash bus advertisement, and also through departmental websites throughout the city. So I think that the opportunity is great. We're really only scratching the surface in this area. I think as George Wolfberg had indicated, there is really a lot of opportunity for expansion of the types of services that we can offer on the MyLA web application. This is really our 1.0 application. And as Steve has indicated, over the next 8 to 12 months, we'll be rolling out the new CRM system, which will really revolutionize and really turn upside down the capabilities of the system. It will now, once we have it live, it will allow, when you submit a request, you'll actually get an auto reply back with a work order number, so you can self-serve and look up the status of that request yourself, or you can call any office in the city, whether it be an elected office, the department that provides that service, or 311, and all will be able to go to the same database of information, get the answer on the latest status, and provide that information. In addition, I think it will provide a whole new level of transparency, because it will be able to provide reporting dashboards that will show you for council district, neighborhood council district views, what the metrics are, or what are the most popular services that are being utilized or that are being addressed in those neighborhoods. You'll be able to see turnaround time. If, for example, a department says their service delivery goal is to resolve a request in 48 hours, it'll show you if they're meeting that goal. And that'll be both available not only in a tabular form, in a graphical form with pie charts, bar charts, but also in a mapping form, so you'll be able to see hot spots of what's occurring in your district. So it's really going to revolutionize the way we do things. We ask for everyone's patience as we're building over the next 12 months really the infrastructure and working with each of the public works bureaus that are part of the first scope of the project. Once we get past that first scope, again, we'll be looking at expanding the system much greater across all the different departments that provide service delivery. So this is going to be a phased approach, and we hope to do things incrementally and be able to have successes that we move out as quickly and rapidly as possible. But as I said, we would ask for your patience as we move forward. We'll be working in partnership with all of the various bureaus within Public Works, and we'll also be working with the elected offices, the mayor's office, and city, and the CAO and CLA's office, in making sure that we're focused on the right things, developing the right kind of reports for performance management, because we understand that that's not only an important thing for service delivery, we're looking at performance management in other areas of the city like budget and so forth. So trying to look at this from a big picture view. So it's very exciting, and we're really, this is a system that's really long overdue. So it's great to be able to be moving forward with such an exciting initiative.
Great. I should say we will be as patient as we can, but we are also chomping at the bit, and we're really eager about this, this idea. And so we're gonna light a fire. It'll be a friendly fire, but it'll be a fire that's underneath you, because we want to make this happen. But use that to your advantage, so that know that we want to make this happen. And when if there's a roadblock or a resource issue, come to us right away, because I think I speak for the entire committee that we want to help you push this forward. Sorry, you want to respond to that, and I'll.
You brought up a great point, Councilman, for this whole initiative to be successful. We're talking today really about the technology aspect, and we've talked about the metrics of the actual usage of it. But obviously, an important part of the back end of the process is the service fulfillment. So that's something that we really need to work closely with all of the departments to ensure that they have the proper resources to be able to turn around service requests in a timely manner to meet everyone's expectations based on the resources that they have. And so that's something that we've had conversations with the new mayor administration, where they've talked about a concept of really trying to promote community use of the app. And part of that has to be coupled with working closely with the bureaus within Public Works that are part of the initial app at this scope, to make sure that they're able to really deliver the services in a timely manner as well. So that's something we've had some conversations with Public Works about, and with the new board of Public Works, that's something that I think is going to be really critical.
Absolutely. Although the transparency element is really important. If they're not delivering the services, there may be a legitimate reason, but we don't want to hide that fact. We want it to be out there. And I mean, this is sort of the whole open source thing that the mayor's pushed in the past, and that I'm excited about, is get that information out there. That will help drive the departments to meet that metric and to get the resources. And if there's a block, for us to know what that block is. So, yes, we need to coordinate on the resources, but I certainly don't want that to hold us up. A couple other quick things. You mentioned about the reporting, which I think is great, being able to track where things are. One thing I noticed about the current system, it doesn't actually kick back to the user an end, a closeout. So I think it's important that, and I've used it. I used it for a tree removal situation. And so, but you never get that final, note here your tree has been removed or won't be removed. We need to make sure that that's built in as well. Now, you mentioned integrating with Public Works. I know that a lot of agencies, or DOT, city clerks, there's a lot of different groups throughout the city that are doing their own mobile apps, which is great. But I want to make sure that all of that gets integrated under this sort of primary entry point into the city system with 311. So what are you doing to make sure that not to impede the other agencies, but to make sure that we're working with them so that all of that gets integrated in and we don't have all these different apps that are not connected?
I think that's an excellent point, Councilman. That's, I think, really a really good policy area for this committee to focus on. And certainly through ITA holds monthly meetings with the IT managers of all of the city departments, and that is really our communication vehicle that we use for both talking about new initiatives, talking about policy issues that face the city related to technology matters. So that's a perfect venue for us to not only communicate the information that comes out of the discussions, policy discussions from your committee, but also to really operationalize it and put it into effect.
Yeah. Well, so I would love it. I mean, it would be more specific too about if you guys could put together a list of what those mobile apps are. Sort of taking inventory of that, and because this will be an ongoing discussion that we're going to have with you in multiple meetings, and put that together and sort of be real clear about where we are integrating those different apps so that it doesn't get away from us. Because I also think that there may be cost savings involved in terms of if we leverage all this together versus everybody reinventing the wheel 100 different times. I got a lot of questions, but I want to yield to my colleagues.
Thank you.
Mr. Bonin?
Thanks. Most of the questions I had, you either covered in your presentation or the chair mentioned in his comments or the wise man from Santa Monica Canyon, Mr. Wolfberg, suggested. But there were a couple of suggestions I had about when you talk about how to get the word out. I'm frankly a little embarrassed that CD11 isn't higher up on that chart. Surprised as well.
I thought you might be, Mike.
Yeah, no, mortified might be the word, and we will be fixing that.
You got double CD3 though. I mean, come on.
Not surprised CD13 is up there, but really disappointed. So I got to take some responsibility for that and get the word out, and I will be doing that. But a couple thoughts. Is there a way, I mean, if we're really going to be moving into this as sort of a great way for people to intersect with government and get services done, is there a way for an icon for or a link for the My 311 app to be built into the signature block of any outgoing city email? Is there a way to require promotion of the 311 app at any city-sponsored event? Anything we do, fee waivers for, stuff like that. Is there a way we block off a lot of streets, for the triathlon or for farmers markets. Is there a way to paste onto all of the little sawhorses that we put up an ad for the 311 app? So that anything that we're doing that says City of Los Angeles on it, maybe the city seal is one circle and then the 311 app is another one. Just sort of ways of getting it out there. I'll also be promoting on my social media. Also wanted to ask if there is a way on street tree, for instance. If someone's reporting a tree problem, I learned as I've been going out trimming trees that if a branch is obstructing a stop sign, or a traffic light, it's treated as an emergency, and they go out and they address it within 24 hours, as opposed to 24 years, which might be the cycle we're currently funding. Is there a way for someone to indicate that on the app when they're reporting a tree trimming issue, so that we know that it's an emergency that needs to get treated?
My recollection today, the way we have it set up, is that I think it's routing all of those directly to street services, which in effect also, when it goes into their call center, it gets routed then to the street tree division.
Second question is, so I guess no, I guess is
Yeah.
the answer. So stuff like that, where there's ways to flag stuff for more urgent treatment, I think as we move towards 2.0, if there's ways to do that, that would be useful. Curious if what we're doing to get the word out about the 311 app to city employees and train them on it. And the group of folks I'm thinking of first are our senior lead officers in LAPD. I have senior leads who are effectively doing the same jobs often as council deputies, and they're reporting, an abandoned couch or something like that, or they're reporting a pothole. Sometimes they don't get around to it because it's so time consuming. If we could train our city employees, first ones I would think of would be the SLOs, to be able to use it, that will save them time, and they're out on the streets. If we can get, our building inspectors trained to use it so that if they see a pothole when they're driving to a building they're inspecting, that gets more input and more data.
It's a great idea. We have not done that.
That's all I got. Thanks.
Mr. Farrow.
Just real quick, those are great points, Mike. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but next year we'll be deciding on a new IT contract, and I would imagine that the MyLA 311 app will be RFP'd into that contract and integrated in some way. I know we're waiting on additional information, but that's just more of a comment than anything else. And just a shout out to the old-fashioned 311 by phone. I use that every day. I used it this morning. I called in 3 televisions on Fletcher Drive that had been dumped. And someone had already done it, and I got a confirmation number that the pickup was scheduled for tomorrow morning. So I want to commend the existing 311, and as we move into this wider use of MyLA 311, it's just terrific. And I should know this, I'm embarrassed, but did we develop this app in-house?
Actually, we partnered with an outside consultant.
Okay.
They are going to be the system integrator that actually implements the new 311 system. It's a Los Angeles-based company named 3DI. They had previously worked with some other departments like Water and Power, Building and Safety, and the Housing Department. They took on this project, and it was an amazing development time frame. We initiated the project in December, about mid-December, and by mid-January, we had worked with them to develop kind of the design prototype, and by mid-March, had the application ready to go, up and going. So the 1.0 version, so they developed the app. We work very closely with them because there are several components, technology components that it integrates with in the city's system, like our email system and other things. And the other thing that... So we work closely with them, and in order to stand the app up very quickly, we also have the app right now hosted in the Amazon cloud. So when we go to the 2.0 version, we're actually bringing the infrastructure in-house, but it allowed us to rapidly be able to put up the application.
Thank you. Terrific.
I have some additional questions, but before I ask them, I want to pause for a moment to acknowledge we have some visiting dignitaries with us, starting with my former colleague from the Assembly, Van Tran. He is here with Mr. Tran. He's here with a delegation from China. We have from Northeast China, from the Shenyang province, from the city of Shenyang, from Liaoming province. And the head of that delegation, I believe, is Mrs. Deng Diafang. So acknowledge her, the entire delegation. And Senator Brooks Douglas from Oklahoma is with them as well. So wanted to acknowledge them. Thank you for coming by and joining us. You'll see how we do things here in Los Angeles. So we're talking back on the 311, and I was curious, how close are we to integrating to sort of the back end side of things? Where right now we get the requests and it comes in, and then it's basically sent out as a regular request, and we all know that the way to go in the future is it becomes seamless. What's the timeline for that, so that it's seamless in that regard, and it's so that it's picking up the location from your phone of the picture and all of those types of things?
So today, the 1.0 version app when requests are submitted, they're routed directly automatically to the department that's the service provider. They're received by a central inbox that's managed by that department's call center that dispatches them. Those staff today have to manually then rekey them into the work order systems for those departments. So each of the bureaus in Public Works that do the service delivery are having to rekey those. And they manage those within their own system and then close out the work order when it's completed. And that goes to your earlier point that one of you mentioned, that you're not getting a notification at the fulfillment of that request to be notified that it's been completed. In 12 months, when we stand up the new 311 CRM system, at that time it will be fully integrated with the database, with the 311 CRM database, so that the end-to-end process is fully automated. So at the point that the request is submitted to the system, it will go into the system, it will notify the constituent that the request has been received, and it will give them a work order number. The department will be dispatched. They then will take it and assign a crew to it. Once they complete the work order, they'll note that, and that information then can be relayed back to the constituents so that they know it's been fulfilled. And in terms of tracking in the future, one thing that we've not at this point scoped out in regards to the funding that's been approved that could be another follow-on phase would be the automation of the field crews, so that we put mobile devices in their hands with the actual application, so that when they close out a work order, they're doing it from the field, clicking on their mobile device to close up,
using their city Wi-Fi network.
Right. And then that information does not have to be input later by a clerical staff taking a manual copy of a work order. So that's a future component that could be expanded, and again, talk about greatly revolutionizing the way processes are done. That's something that's a great opportunity moving forward.
Great. Now that's exciting, and we'll add that to the list of quantifiable benefits to the Wi-Fi network as we can figure that one out. And what about like the geolocation on the pictures, and when does that come online?
So today, when you capture a photo, if your GPS is enabled, or excuse me, when you specify your location, you can do it two ways on the mobile app, as you may have seen. You can either type in a location, and it will validate that address and actually put in the geographic coordinates. Or you can just use the GPS capability on your mobile device, and that will auto-detect your location and provide the geographic coordinates. That information gets submitted with the request that's sent to the departments. Today they receive that information, and if they have a mechanism within their work order system today to be able to intelligently take those coordinates and view them on a map, they're in good shape. But the majority of them do not have that within their legacy systems. I believe that the Bureau of Street Lighting has that capability in their system. I'm not aware if some of the other bureaus have it. I don't think so. But that functionality is part of the new CRM system that will go live in 12 months.
Great. And so we just have to make sure that the back-end users are able to take advantage of that too, because it's great. It's revolutionary in some ways, but it's only revolutionary if we're using it. So that's great. What about another thought about the crowdsourcing element? If it's one thing when one person sends a picture of a pothole in the middle of the street, and it's another thing when 100 people send it, and that, how does that get processed, or how will that get processed in the future, in terms of adding urgency, or just even being, obviously put on the dashboard, but how else can that be used, and when will it be used?
Councilman, that is something that I'd like to get back to you on in terms of the exact way our system is going to handle that. The software solution that, as Steve mentioned earlier, is by Oracle. The CRM solution is Oracle's Siebel product. So actually a representative is here today from Oracle, one of our partners in this project, along with 3DI. The system has intelligence so that it can provide you with some mechanism to tell you if you're getting a large volume of requests in a certain category. How that exactly happens, I'm not sure.
Okay. Certainly that could be a useful feature in the future
Yeah.
to be able to use.
That's a great idea.
Any other comments, questions? I mean, so this will be a continued discussion item. As I mentioned, we want to get the list of all the different mobile apps that are out there, how they're being integrated into this, and and following up on some of the questions we've raised today, we can talk about in future meetings. Other than that, I'll move on to the next item. So thank you both very much for that. The last item on our agenda today, Mr. Villanueva, would you please read the item to them?
Item number 11 is a discussion item with the Information Technology Agency, City Attorney, and City Clerk regarding best practices for implementing a remote virtual testimony system whereby the public could provide comment during City Council and committee hearings.
Okay, so we have staff from ITA, City Clerk's Office, and the City Attorney's Office. Please come forward for comments on this item. I don't know the protocol who starts first, so I'll just throw it
I'll
out
start
there
first.
whoever wants to.
Steve Renneker, General Manager for the ITA. We think this is an exciting effort to take a look at it. What the ITA has done is we've contacted Microsoft, Google, Cisco. They all have various video solutions out there. But there's a couple of things that we have, number one, that are kind of flags for the ITA. And the first is the status and the reliability of our data network. The ITGS back in January actually did a request for ITA due to the number of outages we had in our network. We came back, we did report back to the ITGS that the numerous and lengthy outages that we have are directly related to video streaming and audio streaming on our network. So our network today is not robust enough to handle a lot of expansion for video security services that are on our network, to go to voice over IP as an example. And so the concern to move to some of this, if we were to do it a little more widely outside of ITGS, number one is concern. We did have a callback. There's 5 items that the ITA is working on. We got about $1.2 million in investment going into some of the obsolete equipment in the ITA that's going to take about 6 months to remediate. So there are efforts in place to try to get the city's network up to what I would consider a basic level, not an enhanced level. It still needs a complete redesign, still needs significant enhancement to be able to deliver, wireless to the citizens in areas. So today when you deal with wireless at City Hall or City Hall East or any city facility for public use, today we go directly to a carrier, get a circuit, we pay for additional cost for every single location. And there's ways to do that with technology today that you can leverage the pipe, if you will, that we buy on an aggregate basis to make it available so we don't have that huge cost and expense out to the city. So ITA is working on all those things. So when it comes back to the specific motion and the item here, we're working with Microsoft because they have a product called Link. They don't view that Skype is a viable solution for what we're looking at doing here. They're going to come up and actually give staff a demonstration of what they believe might be able to work in this particular area. And there's some issues that I'll let the city clerk and the city attorney address when we're doing in a Brown Act meeting anything that is subject to public record. There needs to be recording of it. There needs to be consideration for closed captioning. There needs to be consideration for inclusion in the minutes and administration. So those are things outside of really the technology aspects. So what ITA is focused on is Microsoft's Link product, which would allow a client to have a free piece, have access in. That's one thing we're going to look at. The state, but they have no examples of anybody in a government setting that's actually doing that today, although they are looking. Google actually has the state of Wyoming. I talked to Flint Waters, their CIO out there. They're going to actually also give us a demo on leveraging a Google Hangout for that feature. And Google Hangout has a recording feature inside YouTube, and there might be some capabilities of that being able to utilized here. It'd be a feature we would have to turn on in our Google product today. We don't today because of the network ramification issues. So that'll be something that we look at. And then we also talk to Cisco because they have multiple different video conferencing solutions. Many of those are very expensive, but will allow a free component for a citizen to gain access to. So from an ITA perspective, those are the things that we're focused on. If you'd like us to change anything or any direction there, we'd be happy to. And I'll turn it over to Holly at the city clerk if she'd like to address any concerns.
On the technical side, you're saying that the biggest problem is the pipeline. Is that if we start doing this, it's going to be we don't have the capacity at this point to take it on. Is that what you're saying, or am I misunderstanding?
Yes, there's what is known as a quality of service issue that if we wanted to give this a priority so it wouldn't bring down any other applications, the reliability of it. For example, today we already have reliability issues with our existing city council voting system and our broadcast mechanism through Renneker. There's a lot of sensitivity and a lot of staff resources just to manage and maintain that, to make sure there's consistency given there. So we have some legacy products that need to be upgraded as a result of that, like the voting system. So those are things that we probably need to spend a little more attention to bring a supportable environment here.
That's fascinating to me because I wouldn't have expected, because we don't have that many committees going on or even council sessions, that, at any given time that would be such a juggernaut for taking this on, because it's fairly limited, but obviously it is.
No, for one or two committees it's fine, but if you need to open it up to 30,000 employees that could use it between facilities and you could have hundreds of streams going on concurrently, that's where the concern comes in. You're right, for a few meetings here and there it should not be an issue.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Holly Walcott, Interim City Clerk. We're committed to working with ITA on this issue. Our concerns as we look for the products out there is to capture some of the information that Steve mentioned, which is how do we capture the speaker information and get it as part of the record. Ideally for us it would be automatic, because even though our clerks sit there quietly, they actually have several activities that they're doing at the same time. They are bookmarking and recording all of this and keeping notes and taking care of cards, etc. So the more automatic this becomes, what we don't want somebody doing is texting and driving, or trying to do too many things at one time. And I will turn it over to Dion from the City Attorney's Office.
Dion O'Connell, Deputy City Attorney. I looked briefly at the Brown Act issues related to this, and also I canvassed several of my colleagues to issue spot some other issues. Regarding the Brown Act, I guess this would roughly be analogous to the remote testimony that the city provided to Van Nuys and San Pedro. And at the time, we advised that it wouldn't be a telecommunication, so that is a bulky process using the telecommunication process. And it would be pursuant to Government Code Section 54953.7, access to meetings beyond minimal standards. So this would be an access to the meeting beyond minimal standards. There are possible issues, though. You have to make sure that you allow equal access to everybody that wants to. There could be a surge of interest or people trying to sign up from far off places. So the committees and the council would have to expand, I would think, the times allowed for public comment. But as long as the committees act reasonably, given the size of the crowd and the size of the demand, I think a court would say that the city acted reasonably. Let's see. The discussions via Skype, and I understand that there was an initial trial run, and the discussion via Skype, you have to make sure that it's picked up by the audio feed that is taking us up right now.
Yeah, we discovered that.
The hard way.
And let's see. Other issues that some of my colleagues raise is that there might be some royal IP issues regarding making sure that there's not any licensing issue with any of these providers, and there may be competitive bidding issues that need to be explored. Other issues involve controlling disruptions, controlling the content of people wanting to participate. We have a hard enough time controlling disruptions with real people.
But you can't turn real people off, whereas you can turn a screen off.
Well, yeah, and so, but there may be issues if we do that. There's also issues regarding hearings involving quasi-judicial matters, making sure that everybody who is making the decision is able to watch this or participate. So those are issues that we could flesh out as we go forward, and we'd be happy to work with ITA and the clerk's office in advising on those issues.
I assume when you talk about the Brown Act issues, equal access doesn't necessarily have to mean, and I'm asking this question, it's not a statement, doesn't have to mean everyone has access. If you get 1,000 people coming, trying to I would imagine, but correct me if I'm wrong, that as long as you have a non-discriminatory system for choosing who is going to speak, you don't necessarily have to listen to all 1,000 people, which would effectively be a filibuster.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so. For how council does it now, going through the cards, it should be a first-come, first-serve, and a court would allow a reasonable time limit on council. So you don't, in some cases, you don't have to take all the cards. If there's 200 cards that are submitted and you only have a 2-hour window, the council can use discretion.
You just say, we're going to have 10 minutes of virtual testimony on this item from either the first 10 or randomly selected 10 or however non-discriminatory way you do it. And you can divide it up 10 minutes, 1 minute apiece, 2 minutes apiece. But as long as you're being fair about it, is there any problem? Is that something we should fear? I don't think it is.
No, I think that's a reasonable way to do it. And possibly on the agendas there could be a little release language or some sort of warning language that this is being offered in addition to in-person testimony. There could be technical difficulties, and occasionally Van Nuys or San Pedro there were technical difficulties.
Right. But those are problems that are very solvable.
I think so.
Members?
Yeah. Well, a lot of people know I tried this. When I was campaigning, this was something I talked about everywhere because I have nieces and nephews on the East Coast, and I can talk to them with FaceTime or Skype. And, after the election, I went on vacation in Europe, and Mother's Day came, and I was able to communicate with my mother face-to-face. And it occurred to me, well, why the hell can't we do the same thing here? Because we often have, I think we get in council chambers in particular, often in committee, a skewed representation of public sentiment from the people who come and comment. I think that's the most polite way I can put it.
Understatement.
Yes. And I think a lot of it is that folks who don't live and breathe city government, who have strong opinions about stuff that happens in the city, particularly development issues, can't afford to take a day off work and fight traffic and come down here and sit on a hard bench for a few hours to get 2 minutes. But a lot of folks would easily do it from their home office or from their work office or something like that. So I really wanted to try this, and I appreciate everybody's help in trying to make it happen. We came very close. My dejected staff, I assured them that the Wright brothers didn't get the plane off the ground the first time, and 60 years later we were on the moon. So I think we can do this. And there's a couple different levels of challenges, I think. One is sort of the legal stuff, and I think we're pretty okay on most of it. Then there's the pipeline and logistical stuff, and then there's sort of the Baba Booey stuff. If we do this, are we going to get a broader range of voices, or are we just going to have more crank callers or more people who are out there? I always said, and I continue to maintain this, I am happy to use my committee as a test and as a pilot for this. You get a range of people from a broad variety of stuff who are interested in T committee issues, cyclists, mass transit users, bus riders, cab drivers, who are interested sort of strongly in issues. So I'm happy to continue doing that. Other committees may want to do the same. I don't know if this committee does.
Absolutely. This is a logical place.
Exactly.
That we're the Innovative Technology Committee to pioneer
Yep.
this.
So
Absolutely.
I'm happy to do it too, however you guys want to do it. And I think some of the logistical issues that Steve raised aren't as acute if you're doing it occasionally or as a test. If you're doing it in a committee meeting, for instance, I've been on Huffington Post Live using Wi-Fi in my office. Now, it's not city Wi-Fi. I bought my own Wi-Fi. If we have to chip in and buy Wi-Fi for one committee room in order to experiment with this, that gives us an opportunity to test out some of the logistical challenges. Which of the various softwares works best, for instance. What are the challenges in queuing? What are the challenges in the city clerk being able to record the right information? So, doing some test cases in 1, 2, or 3 committees is, I think, a great way to sort of get some stuff done.
Good stuff. I would welcome it in arts parks as well.
Yeah, I'm curious about. I understand the technical difficulty if we went, full bore, which would be allowing people to do remote testimony to, permit hearings and all sorts of other, every interface with the city, which is where we'll be in, let's say, 10 years. We're not there yet, but as my colleagues have mentioned, probably if we just start small with the council and a couple of committee hearings and work our way up, that it wouldn't overburden us technologically. And I wonder about also remote testimony, if we might at the same time, since we're bringing the technology in, webcast a committee hearing at the same time. And so the ones that we're offering remote testimony, we're also providing that hearing on live webcast. Would that make it, and I feel like that shouldn't be that difficult in the assembly. We had the equipment, some portable equipment, whenever we did field hearings. We've had one guy come out with 2 remote cameras that he could control with a joystick, and would film the hearing, and it would be webcast live. Now, there was probably some other back-end stuff that, not apparent to the naked eye from the one person controlling the joystick. There's probably somebody else in the back room making it happen, but it wasn't, my point is, it wasn't that extensive, and we were able to do it on a mobile basis in field hearings. So I imagine that we probably could do it we could do it in a static room like this. If we were to make this the Wi-Fi room, or not the Wi-Fi room, but the webcast / virtual testimony room, and just to try it out. Is that something that seems doable? And I want to sort of get all of your thoughts about something like that as a pilot.
Yeah, I mean, the city's done it before. I mean, we did it between San Pedro and Van Nuys for a number of years, and then council decided to turn it off. So, and that was just facility to facility video conferencing. So what we're talking here is video to home. So it's a little bit different, but I think it's exciting. I think it's good to try some pilots, and maybe we give each of the vendors that we think have a viable solution each an opportunity to maybe set up here.
How many vendors? How many committee rooms? We give them each one, maybe a little signage or something, and saying this is brought to you. But it's something to think about. What are the steps that we need to, well, I should let the two of you answer that question too, and if you had an answer, and then
I would have to ask Dion if there'd be any ADA issues. I'm not sure, just as far as equal access. But as far as the city clerk, that would probably mostly be an ITA endeavor.
I wouldn't think there's any ADA issues. You're talking about having...
But giving more access.
Yeah, having this be...
Well, just as an idea of let's say we said this room, all meetings taking place in this room, we set up we set up a web cameras, on the two sides here, and a screen that people could call in on, and then whenever somebody had meetings in this room, they would have the option, the chair would have the option if they choose so, to make it to open it up to virtual testimony and to webcast the meeting live.
And as long as in-person testimony is still allowed.
Yeah, everything will
and,
be the
and the
same.
building is ADA accessible. I don't think there'd be an issue, but it's something we could explore.
So what are the steps that we need to take to make that idea a reality?
What I'd like to do, we're going to set up a series of meetings with some vendors. I'd like to also consult with Channel 35 on the implications of making sure we can broadcast via Channel 35. And if we can do so, I think the exciting part about it is we might be able to leverage some of the 1% PEG funds to actually pay for the technology and implement. So I think we go from there. And we'll come back with you with a report on what appears to be feasible.
Great.
So essentially, the direction is for ITA, City Clerk, and City Attorney to work on developing the possibility for pilot experimental projects for remote video testimony and webcasting in at least one committee room with willing committee chairs who want to pilot it. And you get 3 right here.
Or perhaps it should be the ITA and City Clerk in consultation with the City Attorney's Office.
Yeah.
That's fine.
I didn't leave you out, did I? Did I just I elevated you too much? Was that the...
Well, great. So we'll move.
Well, we need to...
Move forward.
You would need to introduce a motion. You can't take an action item on a discussion.
Okay, so this is just a discussion. I'm predicting an action item, a motion that I'm going to introduce tomorrow, but that's just a prediction. But it's based on this discussion, and we're moving in an interesting direction on that. So
Thank you for bringing this into committee and pushing it.
great. No, thanks.
Thank you.
I think we got a great committee. And it's good to talk through these things.
Yes.
With the relevant experts on the record, with the community here, and with the in public. So this is part of how we're going to move forward on this committee. So with that, unless there's anything technical I need to do to adjourn this committee, I will thank my committee members, thank all of you for being here at this inaugural meeting of the ITGS committee. And even though I don't have a gavel, I'm going to bang my pen and adjourn the meeting. This meeting's officially adjourned.